Welcome to all, and thank you for coming out to tonight's meeting of the Peoria Planning and Zoning Commission. Going to take roll call. Commissioner Nancy Golden.
Present.
Commissioner Leonard Spriker.
Present.
Commissioner Greg Loper.
Present.
Commissioner Sean Hutchinson.
Present.
Commissioner Bill Lewis is not here today. Commissioner Jay Otlowski, he's not here. Commissioner Jeff Nelson.
Present.
Thank you. And I'm Commissioner Lee Strickman. Going to be reading the opening statement. This commission is composed of Peoria citizens who have been appointed by the City Council to serve on the commission as a civic responsibility without compensation. Our duty is to study and review planning and zoning issues within the City of Peoria and then forward our recommendations to the City Council. All hearings are conducted in accordance with the Rules of Procedure and Robert's Rules of Order. Each case will be called in the order in which it appears on the agenda unless otherwise announced during the meeting. In the interest of maintaining a fair and efficient hearing, the Commission adheres to the following steps. Chairperson calls the case. Staff gives a brief report and recommendation. Applicant gives a presentation. Opposition and support gives testimony, generally limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Applicant may give a rebuttal, and Commission decision and discussion and decision. Anyone wishing to speak must complete a speaker's request form and hand it to the planning assistant on my left. Please be as brief as possible and do not repeat statements already made by others. Anyone wishing to protest the decision of a commission public hearing item must request a second public hearing before the City Council. The request must be submitted in writing to the Planning and Community Development Department within 10 days after the commission's hearing. All commission recommendations on public hearing items move forward to a regular City Council meeting. The City Council will then act on the recommendation of the commission. They may concur with the decision, modify it, or overturn it. We welcome citizens' comments, and as fellow citizens of Peoria, we thank you in advance for your participation. This is the final call to submit speaker request forms. If anyone wishes to speak, please fill out a speaker request form and provide it to the staff seated to my left at the dais. The first item is our consent agenda. The consent agenda is for items that are routine in nature and consist of 2 items tonight. 1C is the disposition of absence. The discussion and possible action to approve, excuse the absences of Vice Chair Leonard Spriker, Commissioner Bill Lewis, and alternate member Jay Otlowski at the August 20th, 2015 meeting. 2C, discussion and possible action to approve the minutes of the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting held on August 20th, 2015. Do any commissioners have any questions or comments? Okay, seeing there are no questions or comments, do I have a motion?
Madam Chair, I would move for approval of the consent agenda as presented.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, please vote. Okay. We now move on to new business. The first agenda item is 3R, public hearing regarding conditional use permit Char Pizzeria Napolitana, CU 15-004. Staff, please present your report.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the Commission. My name is Lori Deaver. I'm a senior planner with the Planning Department. I will be presenting the staff report for CU 15-0004. The owners of Char Pizzeria have submitted the request before you this evening. For context purposes, the restaurant in question is located in the Lake Pleasant Crossing Center, which is located at the northeast corner of Lake Pleasant Parkway and Happy Valley Road. The request before the Commission this evening is for a conditional use permit. That is to allow an outdoor patio in conjunction with the restaurant in an existing building. The Lake Pleasant Crossing Center is zoned C2 intermediate commercial, so the outdoor dining requires a conditional use permit. Shops A and B are existing buildings. Char is located in the corner suites of Shops A, which is highlighted in red on the screen in front of you. It's approximately 3,200 square feet in size. The patio area is directly south and to the east of the restaurant. It's approximately 1,900 square feet, and it's irregularly shaped as you see in front of you. Both Shops A and B are multi-tenant commercial buildings. The Char patio will operate in conjunction with the restaurant itself, and the patio is going to consist of approximately 70 seats. The zoning ordinance has 4 standards that govern outdoor dining, which I'll go through shortly. And for context and reference purposes, I have the color photo sims provided by the applicant to the left. For outdoor dining standards, the 4 standards, first one being the patio area needs to be immediately adjacent to the restaurant. As you can see from the elevations illustrated, the patio actually abuts the restaurant and meets this criteria. The second one is the patio use does not interfere with pedestrian access, fire lanes, traffic visibility, etc. If you can see my mouse pointing up front right here, this is the entry into the buildings. Char would be Shops A, Jimmy John's would be in Shops B. There is a clear path for pedestrian access to go between both of the restaurants. Consequently, the intended use, the outdoor dining, does not interfere with pedestrian access. It is between the 2 existing commercial buildings, so it does not impact traffic or fire lanes or anything of that nature. The third criteria that we look at is the patio area may not exceed 25% unless there's mitigating measures. In this case, we have a couple of options, or a couple of things to consider. The first one is the steel beam trellis. If you look in the south elevation right here, this was built at the time of the original construction of Shops A and B. It actually is created as a gathering spot, and it is a kind of an integral shaded area for pedestrians to gather. So essentially what Char is doing is creating the shaded area associated with the restaurant, their suite, and they're kind of incorporating it into their use. The concept itself, the theme, is an indoor-outdoor restaurant. So the outdoor patio is acting as an extension of the restaurant in this manner. Also, wanted to also note in the south elevation, excuse me. Technical difficulty, there we go. Okay, so in the south elevation, what you see, they're actually providing box trees, street lights, and misters also to provide ambience. They also have wall sections. Those are in your packet, and you can see those a little bit more clearly. They vary in height. They enclose the patio. They vary in height from 3 to 5 feet. Basically enclosing the patio and incorporating it into the restaurant space. So it kind of turns the space in towards the restaurant itself. It's not high up to block visibility for pedestrians as well. So it acts to mitigate the noise while creating the space internally for the patio, but it also creates an enjoyable space for pedestrians walking by that they're not in, that they don't hear the noise as much coming from the restaurant. So based upon the measures being presented, staff believes that it's appropriate in this instance with the columns and all of the other additional mitigation measures. It's appropriate for the patio area to exceed that 25% gross floor area requirement. The last criteria that we look at is if there's any additional measures or limitations that need to be considered by commission for mitigation purposes. In staff's opinion, the conditions that we've set in the staff report and the restrictions, anything above that would not be necessary in this case. So based on our analysis, our key findings, the request is consistent with the City of Peoria zoning ordinance, and it's compatible with the existing uses in the surrounding area since it's commercial to commercial adjacent to it. The use in conjunction with the conditions of the approval will operate in a manner that will not negatively impact the adjoining uses. And the applicant and owner has submitted a signed and notarized Prop 207 waiver, which will be recorded with the conditions presented in the staff report. Staff provided noticing for the application in accordance with the zoning ordinance. We did not receive any support or opposition to this request. With our analysis, we are recommending approval of case CU 15-0004, subject to the conditions of approval as stated in the staff report. And with that, I will take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Golden?
Thank you. When I was looking at this area, it appears to me that you have sort of a pie-shaped area, and they've just divided it down the middle.
Correct.
And so is my understanding that if we approve this, it would not mean that the shop next door couldn't have the same patio approval if they wanted it?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Golden, let me kind of direct your attention to the screen. Jimmy John's actually is next door. They do have an existing patio area with trees, or excuse me, with seating out in that general area. It is separated away. There is at least a 3 to 5 foot clear ADA accessible walking space between Jimmy John's existing patio with their dining and what would be between Char.
And so that's already been approved?
The Jimmy John's patio is approved. The application tonight is for the Char patio. It would be the flanking outdoor patio space in that corner.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Do any other commissioners have any questions of staff?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Commissioner Spriker?
Thank you, Madam Chair. On one of the attachments having to do with CU 15-0004, second paragraph said, uses on the outdoor dining patio shall be limited to outdoor dining. Then in parentheses, it says, no entertainment activities shall be conducted on the patio on a permanent basis, i.e. live bands / entertainers, etc. Does that mean that it's to the shop or to the restaurant's discretion when they bring in entertainment? Can they have entertainment, and what's the process for them coming to the city? Do they have to get a special permit of some sort to have a band or karaoke or whatever they may be doing?
Vice Chair Spraker, you're exactly correct. A temporary use permit would be required for any short-term events, and that would be issued through the Planning Division. Generally, those are the type of events that may last for a weekend or one day. It could go for longer, but those would be on a case-by-case basis.
Thank you. No other question.
Do any other commissioners have any questions of staff? I have opened the public hearing. Is the applicant present? Yes. Do you wish to speak? No. Okay. Are you in agreement with staff recommendations? Yes. Okay, thank you. Do any commissioners have any other questions of the applicant? No speaker request forms for this? Okay. I am now closing the public hearing. Any comments from the commissioners? Commissioner Loper? Oh. Oh, okay. Do I have a motion? Commissioner Loper?
Madam Chair, number one, I want you to be successful. This is a good location. It's a high-traffic location. I would hope that we don't put undue burdens on you. I mean, this to me is an ideal location for an outdoor venue. It's high traffic, frankly, and I know there's a process to go through, but you could put a band there and they could be doing 150 decibels. I'd have a tough time hearing you at the Target, caddy corner. So good luck to you. And with that, I would move for approval of CU 15-0013, subject to the stipulations outlined in the staff report.
Do I have a second?
Commissioner Loper, you called the wrong one.
Oh, okay. You want to read?
I do that to see if people are paying attention. Mostly me. I would move for approval of CU 15-0004, Your competition was the other one. Subject to the stipulations outlined in the staff report.
Do I have a second?
I second the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Nelson. Please vote. Okay. The next agenda item is 4R, public hearing regarding conditional use permit, Tailgaters Outdoor Dining, CU 15-0013. We're doing a lot of outdoor dining. Staff, please present your report.
Madam Chair, members of Commission, good evening. My name is Randy Proch, planner with the City of Peoria Planning Department. Tonight, I additionally have an outdoor dining for the Tailgaters. This is case number CU 15-0013. Tailgaters is located in the Camino Al Lago Marketplace. This is at the southeast corner of Deer Valley Road and Lake Pleasant Parkway. The site is adjacent to existing retail and restaurant uses, such as the Peoria Artisan Brewery, which recently came before Commission. This request tonight is for a conditional use permit that would allow outdoor dining in conjunction with the restaurant. For applicability, this site is for C2, intermediate commercial, and in this instance, a CUP is required for outdoor dining. This restaurant is approximately 7,083 square feet. It is all 4 suites of the building. A previous tenant, Oriental Buffet, was located here many years ago. The patio area itself is 530 square feet. That is to the northeast side of the building. This will be in conjunction with the Tailgaters restaurant. The patio hours themselves will be consistent with the restaurant, and there are approximately 27 seats. The dining standards for outdoor dining in the zoning ordinance states the following. The patio area needs to be immediately adjacent to the restaurant. If we can, these here are roll-up garage doors that were approved previously through a design review process, which will open to the patio area. Within the restaurant will be a similar semi-conditioned portion that will be almost acting as a breezeway onto the outdoor dining area. This will not interfere with any pedestrian access, fire lanes, traffic visibility. What currently exists in this area is the landscaped portion of the site. There are others. This would replace that area. Now, this area is well below the 25% of the gross floor area allowance, so that will not be a concern. Any additional limitations may be considered by Commission. For mitigation purposes, this is on an as-needed basis. Now, the key findings for this one are as follows. The request is consistent with our ordinance. It is compatible with the surrounding uses in this area. This is becoming a booming restaurant area as well. The use is in conjunction with conditions of approval and will operate in a manner that won't negatively impact the adjoining uses. Additionally, to point out, as part of the staff report, the landscaping that exists currently in that area will be replanted in other areas of the site to help maintain the appeal. The applicant and owner have submitted a signed and notarized Prop 207 waiver, which will be recorded in the conditions with the staff report. Our recommendation is to approve CU 15-0013, subject to the conditions of approval as outlined in the staff report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Do any commissioners have any questions of staff? Okay. I have opened the public hearing. Is the applicant present? I am. Do you wish to speak? Not at this time. Not at this time? Okay. Are you in agreement with staff recommendations? I am. Thank you. Do any commissioners have any questions and or comments of the applicant? Okay. Seeing that there are no speaker requests?
Wait, I do have a question for staff.
Okay, Commissioner Spraker?
I don't find the paragraph immediately here, but there was, on the 0004, there was a comment in the paperwork, as you remember, having to do with no permanent entertainment, bands, what have you, outside, have to apply for a permit and what have you. As I was looking through the paperwork, and I can't find it immediately, but I read it earlier, it does not say that the paragraphs between this one and that is 0013 and 0004 having to do with outside entertainment are not the same stipulations. At least they're not written to be the same, and I'm just curious about why the two are different.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, so perhaps they should be written the same. I will direct your attention to stipulation 2, uses on the outdoor dining patio shall be limited to outdoor dining. So that corresponds with the narrative that the applicant submitted that really talks about dining being the only use that's intended on the patio. But it wasn't by design. I mean, certainly we could look to make those conditions consistent in the future.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Do any other commissioners have any questions or comments? I am now closing the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve case CU 15-0013, subject to the conditions outlined in the staff report.
Thank you, Commissioner Nelson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Loper. Please vote. Okay, and that passes. Our next agenda item is 5R, public hearing regarding text amendment, pump topper signage code revision, TA 15-0004. Staff, please present your report.
Great. Good evening, Madam Chairman, again, and members of the commission. Before I turn it over to staff, I just wanted to make a few remarks about this case. First off, I do want to introduce a new staff member at my far right. That's Jennifer Faustino, her most recent experience with the City of Avondale. So we're very grateful and very happy to have her join our team. That's right.
Welcome.
That's right. The second thing is I wanted to make a few remarks about the sign code in general as this case relates to the sign code. This summer, there was a landmark Supreme Court case that came out called Reed versus Town of Gilbert. And so the short and skinny of it is that there was major implications to our sign code and really sign codes across the country. While the implications are still being discerned and discussed among attorneys and planners, one of the things that did come out is that sign codes will need to be what's called content neutral. And what that means is that we can't limit the messages within the sign area. So whereby you might have a code requirement that prescribes a certain area that's allowed, whatever the message within that sign, that's no longer at subject. So we can't limit, price components or promotions within that area. So that's one thing that was an implication out of that case. Now, in terms of the sign code, it's going to be a major overhaul that we're going to be doing over the next year. We do plan on going in front of the City Council next month for a study session to brief them on it and the policy implications. We will be coming forward to the Planning and Zoning Commission probably in November to start that discussion, and we'll do regular check-ins as the amendment progresses over the next year. But I just wanted to make those few remarks, and before I turn it over to Jennifer. Jennifer?
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. Tonight, I will be presenting case number TA 15-0004, a text amendment to the zoning ordinance concerning gas pump topper signage. Now, while text amendments are usually staff-initiated, this application was submitted privately by Boots and Dukes Sign Company in regards to the sign area above gasoline pumps, as seen in the yellow dash boxes. The request is to amend content regulations pertaining to pump topper signage found in Article 14-34-16, gasoline service station signs. The zoning ordinance currently allows pump topper signs without a permit, but does regulate the size and the content of the sign. The applicant is requesting to remove Section 2, which states that pump topper signs may only display instructional or price information and cannot include sign copy pertaining to any product sale or promotion. By removing this section, we are allowing the sign area to be used for any of these purposes. While the content regulation will be removed, all other requirements will remain in effect. The proposed change is consistent with the city's intent to create a more content-neutral sign code. The small-scale pump topper signs are geared towards gas station customers only due to their size and location. By removing the content restrictions, the city is allowing gas stations the freedom to further promote their business on-site to their customers. The proposed amendment is consistent with the goals and objectives of the general plan and does constitute an overall improvement to the zoning ordinance by aligning our standards with current industry standards. Staff does recommend approval of TA 15-0004, and with that, I am available for any questions you may have.
Thank you. Do any of the commissioners have any questions? Okay. Okay, yes, it's not showing up, but yes, Commissioner Nelson.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions. So are we just talking about static displays, or are we talking about the potential these could be video screens, audio, digital signage, those annoying kinds of things? Or are we just talking imprinted cardboard stock, you know what I'm talking about, that you typically see?
Commissioner Nelson, within the body of the sign code as a whole, there are current regulations against signs that appear to flash or otherwise move, and so that regulation would be across the board for all signs, including this type.
Great. Sounds like I need to read the sign code. I haven't done that, but based on the fact we're going to be visiting that in November, I need to get familiar with that. May I ask a follow-up question, Madam Chair?
Yes.
So, would this allow signage, for instance, on the nozzle on the gas tank, or to wrap the you're nodding yes, but you're nodding no. So that sounds like it would just be for that 3 square foot framed piece above the, that's all we're talking about here?
Yes, Commissioner
Okay.
Nelson.
Great. That's all I've got. Thank you.
You're welcome. Commissioner Loper?
Thank you. I know these kind of things are a lot of fun. I was nodding yes because depending on where you travel, there are little messages on the top of the gas things and there's stuff. And if it wasn't for these things, I wouldn't know that I could get a great slice of pizza. And if I stood up, you could tell I have way too many of those. You know, I don't know the sign code in and out. I wouldn't even pretend to if I'd even read it because it's always an evolving thing. But it seems to me that we box ourselves in a corner by trying to identify everything. In other words, you know, pump toppers are relatively new, but, you know, they do have video screens on some. And if you go to a Giant, and I am going to say their name, they have the annoying audio thing that goes on. And I want to drive my knife in through that little speaker, but it talks to you the whole time. But I wonder if sometimes if we shouldn't just, as we're redoing this, and this is more of a global statement, think about exemptions under a certain size or something like that, because you can't possibly foresee all the change. I mean, I remember when, and I forget what they're called, but the not the wind socks, but the flapper, you know, they're on the vertical pole. Those were new, and now you will drive by, you don't even notice it. And the guy's standing in the corner flipping the thing. Unless he's really good, you don't even notice that anymore. And, you know, they're always going to try and be a way to do it. And a gentleman with Boots and Duke, which I've done business with in the past, they do great work. But their job is to always come up with something new. And we could constantly be going through text amendments and also probably making things difficult for our business community, which I know we don't want to do. So I'm just throwing it out there as we move forward. I would be in favor of less regulation for on-site stuff, but the stuff from the public view, I definitely understand. That's all I had. Thank you.
Okay. Any other commissioners have any questions? I have opened the public hearing. Would the applicant like to speak?
I'd like to say something short.
Okay, please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record.
My name is Andy Gibson with Boots and Duke Sign Company, 4028 West Witten, Phoenix, Arizona. Just so everyone is clear, I presented the application to the city, but this was really pushed by Fry's Food and Drug. They're looking to do a lot more work, a lot more fuel centers inside of Peoria in the future, so this is something that's very important to them. It helps with price point. It helps with advertising product specials that they have. They're not looking to really get any other signage around. This is a standard they have for all the Fry's fuel centers. And kind of how it came about was a code enforcement officer stopped by pretty much every single fuel center in the city and wrote them up for violations. Fry's took the initiative to go forward and try to solve the issue instead of keep putting up illegal signs. You know, Fry's is doing a great thing I work with a lot of customers. Fry's is really, you know, stepping up on this one to take the initiative, to pay the submittal fee, even though the city of Peoria knows it's kind of an issue right now, but they just kind of wanted to handle it and, you know, make it happen. So, you know, I'm here on their behalf. Thank you so much.
Do any commissioners have any questions of the applicant? No, thank you. I am now closing the public hearing. Any comments from the commissioners before we vote?
I have a question.
Of course. Commissioner Spraker.
A few meetings ago, we were talking about, I think it was Quick Trip that was going in on the Rio Vista Boulevard, having to do with the monument sign being so far or so high, or I forget exactly what the details were now. Does this new ordinance that we're talking about, the 3 square foot, the top of the pumpers, does that in any way affect, or do either one of these two things affect each other at all at a gas station or a Fry's Center, what have you?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Spraker, not at all. This specifically refers to a specific provision of the sign code relating to what's called a pump topper sign, so that part that Jennifer showed you in the slide.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion? Commissioner Loper?
Madam Chair, I would move that we send a favorable recommendation for TA 15-0004 to the City Council as outlined in the staff report.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Seconded.
Thank you, Commissioner Spraker. Please vote. Our next agenda item is 6R, public hearing regarding text amendment, boarding and training kennels, TA 15-0003. Staff, please present your report.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. As noted, the next case before you is a text amendment for boarding and training kennels, TA 15-0003. As a little background, as noted, zoning ordinance text amendments can be either city-initiated or privately initiated. The amendments do affect the zoning ordinance, affect all properties affected by that zoning district, not just the applicant, so it is not property-specific. In this case, we do have a private party applicant, which is Doggy District Pet Resort, and their request is to amend the zoning ordinance to allow pet boarding and training as a permitted conditional use in the C2 Intermediate Commercial Zoning District. As a permitted conditional use, it would require a conditional use permit prior to operation. The existing condition of the zoning ordinance currently allows boarding and training kennels in the following zoning districts: the C4 General Commercial, PI1 Planned Light Industrial, I1 Light Industrial, and I2 Heavy Industrial. So as you can see, currently that use is concentrated in the industrial and heavy commercial areas of the city. Boarding and training kennels are not currently permitted in the C2 Intermediate Commercial Zoning District. On a related use, however, pet shops are permitted in the C2 zoning district as a permitted use, so by right, in other words. Pet shops, that definition does include accessory uses including boarding, training, and pet daycare. So those would be allowed in conjunction with pet shops as right now today in the C2 zoning district. However, they cannot have outdoor areas such as outdoor play areas or outdoor dog runs. For staff's analysis, as of note, the C2 Intermediate Commercial Zoning District is really the most common zoning district, common commercial zoning district in the city, outside of perhaps a PAD, which typically refers back to the C2 Commercial Zoning District. These are the type of commercial retail centers that you'd find at arterial intersections, really any day-to-day place that you might go for your everyday shopping needs. The pet industry has grown and matured over the years and really has changed tremendously from the time that the zoning ordinance created the boarding and kennel usage. The pet industry has grown from $17 billion in 1994 in 20 years to $58 billion. So it's a tremendous growth. And as many folks know just from their personal lives, pets have become a huge thing in terms of the type of spending that people will put forth, all sorts of retail and commercial services associated with the pet industry. Over 62% of American households include at least one pet. So this is very relevant to Peoria citizens and those who shop and work in the city. So right now, as I said, pet shops could go into C2, have a limited accessory use of boarding. However, this text amendment for specifically boarding and training kennels would allow that as the principal use. So it would be primarily boarding and training, and it would also allow outdoor areas for the pets at those locations. Let's see if we can advance the slide there. Okay. So our proposed amendment does have a summary of special limitations. These limitations are intended to ensure that there's a mitigation of any potential negative impacts that could be created from this use. These limitations are similar to those that are existing for pet shops right now. For the C2, specifically for the C2 district, the boarding and kenneling would be limited to household pets, for instance, no horses. The boarding and training kennels in the other districts could continue to operate as they do, including larger animals. The hours of operation for outdoor activities would be limited to between the hours of 6 a.m. and 7 p.m. This actually corresponds to the outdoor areas in residential districts for daycare uses. So similar issues where you have noises occurring outside, we're limiting those hours to typical daytime, daylight hours. There would be no commercial breeding of animals allowed on the facility. And the sound transmission control value, which is a technical term, of 50 plus would be required. What this requires is that the particular building that the use is located in has special soundproofing to limit the transmission of sound. That can be done with very standard construction techniques, but simply ensures that there's not sound bouncing to suites next door if this isn't a multi-tenant building. Additionally, refuge storage would have to be done within an airtight container or completely enclosed building to avoid any offensive odors. No nuisance odors would be allowed off-site, so that's very specific. And in addition, the applicant would have to provide with the conditional use permit a boarding facility management plan. The management plan would include site-specific business operations, including how that particular business was going to manage any odor or noise. So this would be their business operations at that location, given the building and facility. So it would be very site-specific, so that at the conditional use permit approval, the commission would have those types of information for their review. So you'd be able to see exactly what they were going to do to operate in a manner that would be appropriate for the neighborhood. As a result, staff's findings are that the proposed amendment will better serve pet boarding patrons and residents by providing a location that is both convenient and accessible to other goods and services. It is also consistent with the general plan goals, promoting compatibility between differing uses, as well as high-quality architecture and site development. As a result of staff's findings, we recommend approval of the text amendment TA 15-0003 to the City Council, and with that, I take any questions.
Do any of the commissioners have any questions of staff? Commissioner Loper.
Madam Chair, I'll try to keep this quick and brief. Couple of things. One is, so this is a text amendment as a request. Did they request that it be done as a conditionally permitted use, or was that staff's direction that, hey, we know you want to do it, but we think it should be a conditionally permitted use?
Commissioner Loper, the applicant worked with staff early on to determine what might be acceptable to the city, and as a result of those conversations, we determined that the conditional use permit would be most appropriate. So it was a dialogue back and forth.
Where I'm going with this, two things. One is, I don't know our zoning map real well. Do I have to confess that, just like I don't know the sign code? But it would seem to me that if we have this type of use in C4 and heavier intensity uses, and we have it in C2, why don't we have it in C3? And I don't know if there's C3 around or if that's an older district that's being eradicated or what, but to me it makes sense that if it's good in a neighborhood commercial setting and C3 is more intense in use, then it should be in C3 as well. That's one. So I would like to see that without causing undue burden for the applicant. Number two, and this is just a general thought I have on our conditional use permits, that we have performance criteria that they have to meet. And to me, if they can demonstrate they meet that, having them go through a somewhat discretionary process, because heck, I could be in a bad mood and just because, my dog did something it shouldn't have done in the floor, I don't want this use. It could be something that ludicrous, but I would hate for a business owner to come forward and say, I meet all these criteria, why am I now waiting 6 weeks, or whatever that process is to come in front of a board for a discretionary hearing when really it should be, and it would be on consent likely if they met everything, but now we're opening it up for opposition, for somebody could say, oh, there's going to be a dog grooming, I'm going to hear dogs all day, and they'll come to the forefront and they'll kick it to a public process when really if they'd looked into it and you said, well, with the noise transmission standards that we have, that's really not going to be an issue. And if it is, we have a whole other process. In other words, I would like to just see this be a permitted use if they meet the performance criteria, so they can go along with their business. And then, if they violate that, that's a whole other process that's already handled for any business. And if they can't meet that criteria, then they come before us and they say, I'd like to be able to open it up to pigs, or I'd like to be opened up to horses, or I'd like to be able to have it, whatever it could be. But it seems like I'm in a pro-business stance tonight. You could tell. But it seemed to me that if they meet the performance criteria, let them go do it. Don't make them wait. That's me. Just throwing that out there.
Okay. Do any other commissioners have any questions of staff? Commissioner Nelson?
Thank you. Just a couple of quick questions. You happen to mention pigs. I was wondering about that. Potbelly pigs, would that be considered a household pet, or are we just talking cats and dogs?
Commissioner Nelson, based on the actual city code as opposed to the zoning ordinance, the city code limits the raising of swine, which would include potbelly pigs, within city limits outside of agricultural zoning districts. So they would not be allowed as a pet in general.
Perfect, thank you. May I ask a follow-up?
Sure.
I was just curious, was there any, so when I think of C4, I go to a place called Camp Bow Wow in Peoria. It's in an industrial complex. It's in a huge space. Super tall ceilings. It literally is a big warehouse space. So now we're talking about moving this to C2, a much more confined space, lower ceiling, brings out a whole other set of issues. And what I'm wondering is, was there any conversation or thought around restricting the number of animals per square foot because of ventilation concerns, lighting concerns, that kind of thing, as well as in the outdoor play area? I looked up, I was just doing a little research, and the ASPCA, for instance, says really you should have no more than one dog per 75 to 100 square feet in a play area. I didn't see any kind of restrictions like that. Maybe they exist elsewhere. Maybe the county who certifies kennels, or maybe they're involved somehow. I'm curious just what the thought process was there.
Well, Commissioner Nelson, I think a couple things on that. The applicant may be able to speak better to the challenges of locating within a typical commercial district as opposed to industrial, because they have operations already in those type of facilities. In terms of the per square footage, that's something we could look at. With the conditional use permit, however, that would be something that we could look at specifically, site-specific, so that if a particular location, maybe that was not a concern, where, as opposed to maybe a multi-tenant suite, it is, more space constrained. So we could put those site-specific requirements through the conditional use permit. And I think also in relation to Commissioner Loper's previous comment regarding the permitted versus conditional use, in our zoning ordinance currently, and perhaps that wasn't clarified, the other zoning districts also require a conditional use permit for the boarding kennels, so this would not be out of line for that use in general. So.
Yeah, and that's why I would support a conditional use permit. I would not go as far as removing that, because I think that, especially when we're talking about what I think is not an insignificant revision, I think we need to be able to have the authority to put in those kind of conditions. So I appreciate the answer. Thank you.
Commissioner Hutchinson.
I'm not sure if this is a better question for the staff or for the applicant, but is there any existing facilities, any kind of studies on noise being created by these type of facilities? Is there an existing study on that?
Commissioner Hutchinson, that may be something that the applicant can speak to specifically.
Okay, I have a question. If it's going into, oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Golden. Oh, okay. I didn't see your name. Nobody's name is coming up. Yours did. Okay. As far as the outdoor play area, how is, because I'm envisioning like a C2, I'm envisioning, you know, like pads where there are other stores. How is it decided, like, how much room can be used for that? I mean, is that just carte blanche?
Chair Strickman, in this situation, it would be site-specific. So again, whether the applicant would request a certain area for outdoor use, that would be approved through the conditional use permit process. And they can, I'll leave this to them, but in their existing facilities, sometimes they're reusing a daycare facility that has a fenced area. So these are fenced, generally fenced areas that are contained, and so it would be a delineated boundary. It wouldn't be an open air, or it would not be free range.
And it would be a case-by-case situation?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Golden?
Thank you. As I read this over, I'm thinking not necessarily of the things that are coming forward, but really the things we have approved in the past. So my question to you is, if there was someone who, I don't know, had doggy hair cutting, and now they want to expand their business, will that come to us as a consent agenda item, or will that come to us as a new agenda item? I guess really my question is, I would feel more comfortable if I knew we were going to be looking at like, I don't mind having a dog hair cutting business in my backyard. Well, I'm just joking, of course. But I would be concerned as a resident that now they're going to have an outdoor play area and they're going to have overnight boarding. So I guess I want an opportunity to address that.
Commissioner Golden, that would typically be a regular agenda item. Normally, the items on the consent are those that have been previously considered routine in nature or otherwise unobjectionable, where there would not be that need for as specific a review. So.
But if we change the zoning requirements, then it is just a consent agenda item?
Commissioner Golden, no, it would be, it can be placed on the regular agenda, and
okay.
the only, so.
Okay, great. Then I'm comfortable. Thank you.
Commissioner Loper? Oh, okay.
Is it when it's lit that I vote? Because I know when it's lit, it doesn't.
Okay. Yes.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, if I could just follow up on one point I think Commissioner Loper made earlier about the C3 district and why we didn't add it to the C3 district. The C3 district actually is a kind of a relic district in the city. It's suited for Old Town. What's happened over the years is we've developed an overlay for that really affects most of Old Town. So consequently, there are probably just a handful of parcels that are C3 zoned throughout the city, quite frankly.
Thank you for clarifying.
Okay. Do any other commissioners have any questions? Okay. I have opened the public hearing. Is the applicant present? Would you like to speak? Please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record.
Commission, thank you for your time tonight. My name is Nelson Tressler, 5600 Ambrosia Stream Avenue, Las Vegas, Nevada. I am the owner of Doggy District Pet Resort and the applicant. I understand that this is not a special use hearing. However, to illustrate how the boarding industry has changed over the past 20 years, I'd like to go through a short history of mine company and also to illustrate how we have made this work over the past 10 years with 7 locations. Let's see if I can. Okay. Doggy District was founded in 2006 when the owners could not find a facility that offered the level of care that we were looking for our dogs. After opening the first location in Las Vegas, Nevada, which was a former daycare building located in C2 zoning, it came, the demand came rapidly, and that a lot of other pet parents were looking for this same level of care for their dogs. We added 5 locations over the next 8 years, including 2 others down here in the Phoenix area, actually 3 others, and then this location that we're proposing tonight to try to get this text amendment done. All of our centers are located in convenient locations, many being vacant childcare buildings or empty shop space in shopping centers. Pet parents really appreciate that our locations were convenient, thus allowing them to provide the services that they wanted for their dog without having to go miles out of their way. At current, the zoning only allows a pet parent to get outdoor play for their dogs if they are willing to go through these industrial parks. Pet parents want more convenience so that they can use our services more often. We are a full-service indoor-outdoor pet resort. We are not a kennel. We don't even use that word at our facility. We offer doggy daycare with outdoor play yards. And as you can see, there's play equipment there, just like children's daycares. Parents want their dogs to be able to play outside and socialize with other dogs and with staff and have fun. We have all kinds of activity that people want for their dogs, including small swimming pools, bubble parties. And as you can see, this is from Las Vegas in July. We've had snow pumped in to where the dogs could go and play in the snow that pet parents enjoyed. We also do lodging. And as you can see from the photo, it is not your typical kennel. We do have smaller enclosures, but these are the suites that pet parents can choose from at our facility. We also are a full-service grooming shop. We offer the sale of premium dog food, so we are a retail shop as well, offering treats and accessories. We are a full-service training class where people can bring their dogs to have their dogs trained. They even get a graduation picture at the end with their cap and gown. People are no longer looking for a facility merely to board their dogs while they're away. They want the services that they provide for them at home. We have multiple birthday parties every week at our facilities. We even have a puppy prom every May that people dress their dogs up and bring them, and we have a DJ, and we crown a prom king and queen. We improve many projects that we go into. This is a former daycare in Tempe, Arizona that we took over. This is what it looks like now as our facility. So many of these special use buildings that would really not be usable for any other use. Daycare, I also own children's daycares, and that kind of business where the community matures and the kids move out, essentially the dogs move in behind them, and parents fill their place with pets. And when there's not enough business there to support a daycare, it's a perfect situation for our business where we move in and take this. We use the yards, and it's a good fit for us. We have a 9-year track record of being good neighbors. We're very conscious of the potential issues that could arise. This is a facility we've been open 6 years. It's a grocery-anchored store, Dunkin' Donuts, 7-Eleven, Citibank. We share a wall. Our play yard shares a wall with a 180-unit apartment complex with no issues. We've taken over strip centers. We have a dentist on one side of us, a children's daycare on the other. Bank of America is out front there, and then to the back is residential. So we've made strip centers work in C2 zoning. This is our facility in Mesa, where we also share a wall with a a luxurious apartment complex. Not sure how many units are in there. This is another former daycare with an outside yard. There's a park to the right of the screen. All of our locations are staffed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I mean, this is the type of facility that we put up. Again, it is not a kennel. It's not just a boarding facility from 20 years ago. Our business model depends on convenience to our customers. We are located as convenient as the bank is, and pet parents are dropping their dogs off for daycare as they go to work, or if they're out running errands, or they need to get their dog groomed, or pick up pet supplies, or have their dog trained. We are convenient, and pet parents truly appreciate that, to where they don't have to drive miles out of their way. The industry has changed. Pets are part of people's families, and they want the same amenities that they have at home. And this is the proposed property that we're getting ready to submit a special use permit on if we're approved for this text amendment. It is a former landscaping design showroom that has yards in the middle of the building. Very special use building. It's been on the market for over a year, for sale and vacant. There's I believe it's a rock yard to the left as I look at it, and to the right is a small office park. And this just up, you can see we would utilize those indoor yards, as well as the driveway to the left where the rock yard is, to make a yard there as well. And that's our site plan. A bond with the true dog is a lasting tie of this earth will ever be. And I just want to go through, we understand that there are concerns with allowing our type of business to go into C2 zoning. As far as noise, we do orientations on every dog that comes through our door. We evaluate on a lot of different situations. One of those things is barking. If there's a chronic barker that just loves to bark, we do not accept that dog. We are very aware of our neighbors. We want to be good neighbors. So we would not accept that dog. If there's a dog outside, our staff is well trained to understand that noise is an issue. If dogs get to be barking too much, they will take them inside. All of our facilities have indoor play as well, and they could do that as well. As far as smell, our staff is trained to pick up dog crap, probably quicker than people flush their toilet at home. We are aware of that. We seal it up. It's double bagged and put into the dumpster. We also have a specially designed chemical that's used in the pet care industry called Wizzy Wash, which neutralizes the odors. So there are measures out there to control all the concerns that we have. Like I said, we have a 9-year track record of sharing a wall with 3 single-family residences for the last 9 years and never have had an issue. And as far as a special use permit, I would love it if we didn't, because we have to go through that process. But I also understand that it is an opportunity for people to voice their concerns and to be able to object if it isn't the perfect fit for that, or these concerns could not be mitigated. So I am actually for a special use permit. I'm pro-business as well, but I think in this situation it is needed and would help prevent any major issues by not allowing that. And I'm happy to take any questions if you have any.
Commissioner Hutchinson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I don't know how you got all those dogs to behave in those pictures. I could tell you if my dog was in that picture, he would ruin everything, including trying to eat the other dogs, his little chihuahua. I do have a pro-business approach to things as well, and I'm going to disagree with my friend down at the end of the dais because of the fact, I imagine, and it could be just me not being able to get over my own imagination, a doggy daycare center yapping away all day long. And it's not just the proximity of a residential neighborhood to a C2, the potential for a very close proximity. It's neighboring businesses, myself being in an office, with clients and have a doggy daycare right next door, with the potential of, the interruptions and whatnot. It's good that there are standards laid down for noise and to have that kind of, oversight. But to go through the hassle, if I'm the business owner and doggy daycare moves next door to me, and to have, and to impact my business potentially, that's something I think that's why we have to look at this on a case-by-case basis. I like where your proposed Thunderbird is, location is, where you had it on the screen. But going back to the noise issue, I mean, are there studies, are there similar installations where, we could look at and say, yeah, it's not an issue for the existing residents or the existing businesses?
I have 7 locations. All are located in C2 zoning. As you saw from my presentation, I share a wall with 3 single-family residents. If you're ever going to have an issue, it's going to be with single-family residents. Right. We've never had an issue there. I think one of the perceptions that people have is when they walk into a kennel and the dogs are all kenneled up and they explode for attention and they bark and look at me, I've been in here all day, get me out, get me out. I would ask you to think of the last time you were at a dog park and the level of noise there. The dogs aren't barking for attention. They're playing just like kids. And we have taken over several children's daycare centers. The people have come to us and said, you know what? I enjoy the dogs being here a lot more than I did the kids. The kids were screaming. So it can be mitigated if you're conscious about it. And we don't want to have neighbors that are not happy with us. We want to be good neighbors. We want to be good business owners. And we do everything that we can. We've proven over the last 9 years under I can't think of a more sensitive situation than sharing a wall with 3 single-family residents. That was our first location. So our business was built around being very conscious of our neighbors and knowing our neighbors and, sharing it with an apartment complex, on several instances that we have 5 or 6, 7 years of a track record there as well. And the cities have their normal ordinances. I mean, I'll tell you, you think of dogs that are left out all day or have a doggy door and the UPS guy comes by and they're at the gate barking all day as a resident or the garbage man comes. We actually would reduce the irritation from people. I have 2 dogs next to me at home that bark all the time because they're trapped in that backyard. Our people are staffed 24 hours a day. There aren't dogs in the yard when there's not staff out there. The staff is trained to know if a dog is getting too boisterous, let's take him inside and let him play until he calms down. So we're very conscious of that. There are no kennels outside. The dogs aren't kenneled up outside. They don't have the ability to go outside. And the hours of operation that Melissa talked about are very key. The dogs are only using this play yard during normal business hours.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Commissioner Loper.
I think this is correct, yes. A couple of things. One, after hearing some very compelling reasons, I can actually understand why the CUP process would be necessary. Maybe not for you, but there could be other situations that could be. And number 2, I really wanted to say this, having done various things in development for longer than I'd like to admit, that presentation was stellar. It was, we get zoning attorneys in here and we get people doing stuff, really spectacular developments. That's got to be one of the best presentations. It sells itself. Hats off to you for running a great business. And
I'll let my assistant know that. She did
What's
a great
that?
job. I'll let my assistant know that. She did it.
Please do. It
Thank you.
sells itself.
Thank
That was
you.
it.
Commissioner Nelson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Are you a corporate-owned, are all the different locations owned by, or are you a franchise model?
No, we're corporately
You're
owned.
corporate
I
owned.
own
So-
all the
So
locations.
I'm just curious, how do you determine, so you're dealing with spaces of many different sizes, how do you determine, what guidelines do you follow to determine how many cats and dogs are at any single time within the facility?
As far as playtime,
As far as kenneling, or playtime, I guess we'd be both.
well, I mean, some of our facilities,
More so kenneling. than
it just based on size and demand, really. Most of the time, we're not even close to capacity. A lot of it's daycare clients. Now, when you get over the major holidays, Christmas, Thanksgiving, that. But as far as play groups, we divide all of our dogs based on size and temperament. So any facility typically would have anywhere from 3 to 5 different yards. And then we would split those up into small groups of, 15 dogs or so, where a staff member is out there playing with those dogs that are, compatible in play groups.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Thank you.
You're, by the way, you're very close to me, and I'm going to be checking you out when you open, because the location is very convenient, and it's nice to see that space being repurposed for something. It has been vacant for a while, and it's nice to see that be used.
Just,
Thank you. And that furthers my point on why these facilities should be allowed to go in C2 zoning. I mean, it's very convenient, and where you would use us there, you might not necessarily use us if you had to go through an industrial area and never saw it. So, thank you.
would just like to focus the commission's attention on the text amendment this evening. Thank you.
Commissioner Loper? Oh, you don't? Okay. Okay, and Commissioner Nelson, you've already spoken. Okay.
I have, thank you.
Any other questions of the applicant? Okay. Seeing that there are no more questions, I am now closing the public hearing. Any comments from the commissioners before we have a motion? Oh, okay. Okay, do I have a motion? Commissioner Loper.
Madam Chair, I would move that we send a favorable recommendation to the City Council for TA 15-0003 as presented in the staff report.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
That's like second.
Thank you, Commissioner Hutchinson. Please vote. Okay. And that passes. Are there any comments from the public on non-agenda items? Seeing that there are no comments, the next item is reports from staff. Does the staff have anything to report?
Madam Chair, members of the commission, so we're just, as you can see on the screen, we do have a meeting on October 1st, regular meeting, and then as I mentioned earlier with the text amendment, we will look to have a sign code discussion in November on the basis of the Reed Town of Gilbert case. And then finally, before we break, I just wanted to introduce another staff member right behind me. This is Sean Allen. He's one of our new senior planners. He's from the state of Utah. City of Provo was his last place of employment, so glad to have Sean here.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay. Any items that the commissioners want to report?
Yeah,
Commissioner Loper?
Oops,
Did you
sorry.
put yours?
I swear I think I'm off, and then it goes, I didn't.
Okay. Commissioner Nelson, did you have something?
I do. Just want to bring to your attention that about a year and a half ago, we revisited remember we decommissioned or approved the decommissioning of the QuickTime on Thunderbird Road. I don't know where it's at, about 89th or 91st or somewhere around, right at the entrance to Rio Vista Park, and the other one opened. So I drove by that this weekend, and one of the concerns I had is when we decommissioned that, one of the commitments made by the applicant was that they were going to fully fence that area, keep it maintained, don't let it become an eyesore. And I regret to tell you that's not been the case. It is not completely fenced. There was graffiti all over the building, and I think we're really letting our neighbors down over there. So I was hoping that somebody from the city might be able to address that offline, maybe follow up with the
Commissioner
applicant.
Nelson, we'll do that. We'll follow up with them.
Perfect, thank you.
Any other? Okay. Seeing no further business, I call this meeting adjourned.